On a sun-scorched farm where wealth and arrogance ruled every corner, a wealthy farmer laughed at those he deemed weak. Among them was a young enslaved woman, quiet, obedient, and seemingly powerless, an easy target for his cruel mockery. But beneath her calm exterior lay a secret the farmer could never have imagined, a presence so commanding, so immense, that it would shatter his sense of control in an instant. When her brother appeared, towering over 2 meters tall, the air itself seemed to shift, and the farmer's confident laughter faltered. What the farmer had dismissed as weakness was, in fact, a force that would turn his world upside down. In that moment, arrogance met its reckoning, and respect became the ultimate lesson. The story begins on a vast, sun-drenched farm where the wealthy farmer, known for his pride and haughty demeanor, oversees his land with a sense of absolute authority. His riches and status have inflated his ego, and he carries himself with an air of untouchable superiority. Among the many people who work on his land is an enslaved woman, whose life is defined by labor and obedience. She is diligent, strong, and resilient, yet to the farmer she is nothing more than property, an object to mock, command, and control. From the moment she steps into his field, the farmer's arrogance manifests in cruel ways. He watches her work under the scorching sun, not with appreciation for her effort, but with scorn, seeing her merely as an inferior being. He makes snide remarks, questioning her abilities and intelligence, often laughing at her in a manner designed to belittle and humiliate. Each taunt, each sarcastic comment is a display of his power over her. He believes that because of his wealth and social status, he is entitled to dominate her completely, both physically and psychologically. The enslaved woman, despite enduring years of hardship, does not openly challenge him. Instead, her resilience is quiet, hidden beneath a calm exterior. She has learned to survive in a world where defiance could bring severe punishment. Her eyes, however, carry a subtle fire, a spark of dignity and intelligence that the farmer fails to notice. This contrast between outward submission and inner strength sets the stage for the tension in the story. It is a tension that illustrates a fundamental truth. Appearances can be deceiving, and true power is not always visible at first glance. The farmer's mockery is not limited to verbal abuse. He often uses gestures, imposing his body over hers, demonstrating his control in a way that is meant to intimidate. His arrogance blinds him to the humanity of those he enslaves. He assumes that wealth alone can command obedience and respect. Every day he reinforces this power dynamic, believing he is untouchable. This behavior is not born out of cruelty alone. It is fueled by the systemic belief in his superiority, the social norms of the time, and the absolute lack of accountability for his actions. In his mind, the enslaved woman's life and dignity are inconsequential, and he exploits this belief to the fullest. Yet, within this mockery lies the seed of his eventual downfall. The story uses the farmer's arrogance to highlight a larger moral lesson. Pride and cruelty often blind people to the strength and value of others. His failure to recognize the enslaved woman's dignity, intelligence, and family connections is a reflection of his hubris. He mocks her without realizing that her life is intertwined with people who are capable of altering his fate. The enslaved woman's quiet strength and the unassuming power of her family foreshadow the moment when the farmer's sense of superiority will be challenged. Emotionally, this part of the story evokes both frustration and tension for the audience. readers feel the injustice of the farmer's arrogance and the pain of the woman's forced subjugation. At the same time, there is a growing sense of anticipation, a subconscious expectation that the balance of power may shift. The audience is drawn into the psychological dynamics at play, the farmer's overconfidence versus the woman's resilience, mocking laughter versus silent dignity. This emotional tension keeps the reader engaged and invested in the outcome. The narrative of mockery and arrogance also serves as a social commentary. It reflects the historical realities of oppression, showing how wealth and social hierarchy can create a false sense of invincibility. The farmer embodies the dangers of unchecked pride and systemic inequality. His behavior is a cautionary tale about the moral and ethical blindness that can accompany privilege. The story subtly teaches that arrogance and cruelty are not signs of strength but of vulnerability, a vulnerability that often goes unnoticed until it is too late. Finally, this segment of the story underscores the human need for respect and recognition. The enslaved woman, despite being mocked and oppressed, maintains her sense of self-worth. Her inner strength, dignity, and intelligence cannot be erased by ridicule. This contrast between external subjugation and internal resilience reinforces a timeless lesson. True power is not measured by dominance over others, but by character, courage, and integrity. The farmer's mockery, though momentarily humiliating for the woman, ultimately sets the stage for his own reckoning, revealing that arrogance and disdain for others' humanity inevitably lead to consequences. In summary, the keynote Mockery and Arrogance is not just about the farmer belittling the enslaved woman. It is a study of human behavior, social hierarchy, and moral blindness. The main events in this portion of the story show a wealthy man exploiting his status to humiliate someone weaker, while the emotions conveyed, frustration, tension, and quiet resilience, draw the audience deeply into the narrative. The important lessons are clear. Arrogance blinds, cruelty diminishes the oppressor, and dignity and inner strength can quietly set the stage for justice. Through this detailed portrayal, the story engages the reader, evokes empathy, and sets up a powerful turning point that foreshadows the dramatic events to come. As the story unfolds, the enslaved woman's life on the wealthy farmer's estate seems defined by hardship and submission, yet beneath the surface lies a hidden strength, one that is both literal and symbolic. The woman's family harbors a secret, one that challenges the established hierarchy and promises a dramatic shift in the balance of power. Central to this hidden strength is her brother, a man of extraordinary physical presence, standing at an imposing 10 meters tall, whose stature alone commands attention and respect. This revelation transforms the narrative, showing that appearances can be deceiving and that true power often lies where it is least expected. The enslaved woman's brother is not just tall. His presence exudes quiet confidence, control, and an unspoken authority. Though he has likely lived a life constrained by societal limitations and prejudice, his physicality gives him a unique form of power, one that the wealthy farmer would never anticipate. The story carefully builds this tension. While the farmer mocks and belittles the woman, he is completely unaware of the latent force that surrounds her. This hidden strength creates a sense of suspense, a quiet anticipation that something unexpected is about to disrupt the status quo. The audience feels a mix of curiosity and relief, knowing that the woman is not as powerless as the farmer assumes. The narrative also emphasizes the strategic and psychological aspects of hidden strength. The woman and her brother do not confront the farmer immediately. Instead, they navigate their positions with caution, aware that overt rebellion could provoke violence or punishment. This restraint demonstrates intelligence, patience, and careful planning. Hidden strength is not just about physical might. It is about timing, awareness, and the wisdom to reveal power at the right moment. The story shows that true strength is multifaceted. It combines courage, intellect, and the ability to act decisively when the moment demands. Emotionally, this keynote resonates with themes of hope, resilience, and empowerment. The enslaved woman, though subjected to daily humiliation, carries within her a lifeline, her brother's protection and their shared family bond. The audience experiences a sense of vindication as the narrative reveals that her apparent vulnerability is an illusion. This hidden strength creates an emotional contrast with the previous keynote of mockery and arrogance, where the farmer is overconfident and blind to reality. The woman and her family quietly possess the means to restore balance. It evokes a powerful feeling of anticipation and satisfaction, as readers sense that justice in some form is inevitable. The story carefully portrays the brother as more than just a physical presence. He embodies the dignity and protective spirit of the family. His imposing figure is a metaphor for the often unseen power of marginalized individuals and communities. Society may underestimate those deemed weak or powerless, but the story reminds the audience that strength can exist quietly, waiting for the right moment to emerge. This message resonates deeply, encouraging readers to recognize the latent potential in themselves and others, even in situations where authority seems absolute. The hidden strength also serves a symbolic purpose. It illustrates that empowerment is often relation, rooted in family, community, and connections that cannot be dismantled by wealth or social status. The brother's stature is a literal manifestation of protection and power, while the family's unity represents moral and emotional strength. Together, they convey a larger lesson. Resilience is not only an individual quality, but also a shared force that can counter oppression. The enslaved woman's courage and dignity are amplified by the knowledge that she is not alone, that her family stands behind her in ways that the oppressor cannot comprehend. Moreover, the narrative uses this hidden strength to foreshadow a dramatic turning point. The farmer's arrogance blinds him to the reality of the woman's support system. He continues to mock and belittle, unaware that every insult and act of cruelty brings him closer to an encounter that will challenge his assumptions. The suspense builds as the audience anticipates the moment when the brother's presence will shift the dynamic entirely, creating a moment of reckoning that is both satisfying and morally resonant. This slow reveal emphasizes the power of subtlety and patience in storytelling, showing that the most impactful strengths are often hidden until the right moment. The lesson of hidden strength extends beyond the literal events of the story. It teaches that power is not always about what is visible and that underestimation can be dangerous. It also highlights the importance of resilience, unity, and strategic thinking. The enslaved woman's survival and potential for empowerment are tied to her awareness of her own strengths and those of her family. The audience learns that dignity, courage, and quiet determination can be just as formidable as physical prowess, and when combined, they can challenge even the most arrogant and oppressive forces. Finally, this keynote emphasizes the emotional depth and human complexity of the characters. The enslaved woman's life is not defined solely by suffering. It is also defined by hope, intelligence, and a connection to a protective family. The brother's imposing presence is not meant to inspire fear in the audience, but admiration, highlighting the importance of safeguarding loved ones and standing firm against injustice. The story celebrates resilience, foresight, and the transformative power of hidden strength, preparing the reader for the dramatic confrontation that is about to unfold. In summary, hidden strength reveals the enslaved woman's latent power through her brother, whose extraordinary stature embodies protection, resilience, and the potential for justice. The narrative carefully balances suspense, emotional engagement, and moral lessons, showing that true strength is often concealed, relational, and multifaceted. Through these events, the audience experiences anticipation, hope, and empowerment, while learning that dignity, courage, and strategic patience are invaluable tools in confronting arrogance and oppression. This keynote transforms the story from one of subjugation to one of latent empowerment, setting the stage for a dramatic and satisfying reversal of power. The moment of shock and fear marks a pivotal turning point in the story, where the balance of power that has long favored the wealthy farmer begins to crumble. Up until this point, the farmer has been the embodiment of arrogance and dominance. His confidence is unwavering. He struts through his fields, mocking the enslaved woman and flaunting his wealth, certain that no one can challenge him. The world has taught him that status, money, and social hierarchy ensure his untouchability. He has never had to fear anyone in his life. Until now, the encounter begins subtly. The farmer is overseeing the work, making cruel jokes at the woman's expense, when he notices movement in the distance. At first, he dismisses it as another laborer or servant arriving late. But as the figure approaches, he notices something unusual: the long stride, the confident posture, and the sheer size of the man walking toward him. Gradually, the realization sinks in. This is no ordinary worker. His eyes widen as he measures the man, and a cold shiver of uncertainty runs through him. The enslaved woman's brother, towering at 10 meters, is a living embodiment of power that the farmer never imagined. This moment is emotionally charged, both for the farmer and the audience. The reader experiences the sudden shift from tension to awe and fear. The farmer, who has wielded mockery as a weapon for so long, finds himself powerless in the presence of someone whose strength he cannot control or intimidate. Every step the brother takes is deliberate, measured, and confident. The farmer's earlier laughter and sneers are replaced by hesitation, the kind that comes when someone realizes they may have misjudged the world. It is a moment of reckoning. The arrogance that once insulated him is now a fragile shell, cracking under the weight of reality. The story describes the farmer's internal reaction in vivid detail. His heart races and a knot forms in his stomach. Thoughts tumble chaotically. Who is this man? How could he have gone unnoticed until now? The farmer, who prides himself on his awareness and control, feels a rare sense of vulnerability. His mind, trained to assert dominance, struggles to find a strategy. For the first time, he realizes that his mockery and cruelty might have consequences. The fear he experiences is not just of physical harm. It is the shattering of his ego, the confrontation with someone whose mere presence challenges his entire sense of superiority. Meanwhile, the brother does not engage in aggressive behavior. He does not shout, strike, or threaten. His power is quiet, intrinsic, and undeniable. This contrast heightens the drama. The farmer's fear is not provoked by words or actions, but by the recognition of latent strength. The brother's calm confidence magnifies the farmer's anxiety, demonstrating that true power does not need to assert itself overtly. It is enough to simply exist, to be seen, and to demand respect. This subtlety teaches an important lesson about the nature of strength and authority. Emotionally, the audience is drawn into the farmer's unraveling. Readers may feel a mix of suspense, satisfaction, and tension. There is suspense in wondering how the encounter will unfold, satisfaction in seeing the arrogant farmer humbled, and tension as the moment teeters on the edge of confrontation. The story captures the psychological impact of power reversal, showing that fear is not always physical. It can also be mental, emotional, and existential. The farmer's confidence, built on years of mockery and domination, is suddenly exposed as fragile. The narrative also explores the reactions of other characters. The enslaved woman watches the encounter with a mixture of apprehension and quiet hope. She has endured humiliation and oppression for so long, and now, for the first time, she witnesses the possibility of protection and justice. Her brother's presence symbolizes both literal and figurative support. Reminder that strength and courage can emerge when it is needed most. This emotional layer deepens the story, emphasizing themes of family, loyalty, and resilience. The moment is rich with symbolism. The farmer's fear represents the collapse of false superiority, while the brother's calm dominance embodies true power. The narrative underscores the idea that arrogance, when unchecked, leaves one vulnerable to forces they cannot anticipate. The encounter serves as a moral lesson. Cruelty and mockery may provide temporary control, but they cannot protect against the inevitable consequences of underestimating others. The story invites the audience to reflect on the dangers of pride and the importance of humility, respect, and awareness. The story carefully builds tension through pacing. The farmer's initial dismissal, followed by growing awareness, then shock, mirrors the reader's emotional journey. By focusing on internal thoughts, physical reactions, and the quiet, imposing presence of the brother, the narrative creates an immersive experience. Readers can almost feel the sweat on the farmer's brow, the quickening of his pulse, and the weight of realization pressing down on him. This attention to detail makes the moment visceral and unforgettable. As the encounter reaches its climax, the farmer's mockery ceases entirely. Words fail him. His arrogance cannot shield him from the reality of the situation. The 10M brother, by simply existing in his space, has redefined the power dynamics. This pivotal moment signals the beginning of a larger reversal, setting the stage for consequences, justice, and the empowerment of those who were once oppressed. It is not violence that asserts control, but presence, dignity, and latent strength, a profound lesson woven seamlessly into the narrative. In conclusion, the keynote shock and fear illustrates the moment when the farmer's arrogance and sense of invulnerability collide with the reality of hidden strength. The main events focus on the brother's approach, the farmer's growing realization, and the psychological unraveling that follows. Emotions run high. Fear, tension, awe, and anticipation dominate the scene. The story teaches important lessons about humility, the unpredictability of power, and the consequences of underestimating others. Through this encounter, readers see how true strength can overturn arrogance, how quiet confidence can intimidate, and how moral and physical courage can shift the balance in unexpected, satisfying ways. The unexpected power shift is the dramatic turning point that transforms the story from one of oppression and arrogance into a narrative of empowerment and justice. Up until this moment, the wealthy farmer has been the unchallenged figure of authority, using his wealth, social status, and cruel mockery to dominate the enslaved woman and others around him. His power has seemed absolute, unshakable, and unquestionable. Yet, as the story unfolds, this perception is upended by forces the farmer had never anticipated, a vivid reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that true strength often lies hidden, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The shift begins with the subtle but powerful presence of the enslaved woman's brother. Towering at 10 meters, he embodies a strength that is both literal and symbolic. Unlike the farmer, whose power relies on status and intimidation, the brother's power comes from his presence, dignity, and readiness to act if necessary. This contrast highlights a central theme. Power is not always measured by wealth or social position, but by courage, capability, and moral integrity. As the brother enters the scene, the farmer's arrogance is instantly confronted by a reality he cannot dominate or dismiss. This psychological impact on the farmer is immediate. Confidence gives way to hesitation, mockery fades into silence, and the illusion of control begins to crumble. The narrative builds tension as the farmer realizes that the situation has fundamentally changed. His previous tactics, taunting, belittling, and threatening, no longer hold sway. The brother's presence, combined with the woman's quiet strength, signals a reversal of roles. Suddenly, the farmer finds himself vulnerable, uncertain, and exposed. The audience experiences a sense of satisfaction as they witness the once dominant figure confronted by a force he never anticipated. This power shift is not just physical, it is deeply psychological. The farmer must grapple with the fear and respect that his arrogance had never allowed him to feel, while the enslaved woman and her brother gain a newfound agency that had previously been denied. Emotionally, this moment resonates on multiple levels. For the audience, there is a thrill in seeing justice unfold, a cathartic release after witnessing the woman's long-standing oppression. The tension that has been building, the farmer's cruelty versus the woman's silent resilience, is finally resolved through the revelation of hidden strength. The audience can feel the shift in energy. The oppressive atmosphere created by mockery and fear is replaced by empowerment, courage, and moral clarity. The story reminds readers that patience, resilience, and awareness can transform a situation, even when it seems hopeless. The story carefully illustrates how this power shift affects the farmer's perception. He begins to see that his assumptions were flawed. His belief that wealth and social standing guarantee control is shattered. Every gesture of intimidation he once relied on now seems insignificant in the face of genuine strength. The narrative emphasizes this reversal through descriptive detail. The farmer's posture changes, his voice falters, and his once dominant presence is now diminished. The reader senses a complete inversion. The farmer, who once dictated terms with cruelty, is now navigating fear, caution, and uncertainty, while the enslaved woman and her brother command respect without uttering a single threat. The power shift also underscores a critical lesson about the nature of weakness and strength. The woman, long perceived as powerless due to her social status and enslavement, is revealed to possess strategic intelligence, moral courage, and a support system that cannot be easily undermined. Similarly, her brother's imposing stature symbolizes the latent power that often resides in those overlooked or underestimated by society. Together, they demonstrate that true strength is multidimensional. It encompasses physical ability, emotional resilience, moral integrity, and the wisdom to act decisively when circumstances demand. The audience learns that dominance is not solely about control over others. It is about the ability to influence, protect, and assert one's agency, even in the face of systemic oppression. The narrative also highlights the ethical dimension of this power shift. The story does not glorify violence or cruelty. Instead, it emphasizes the restoration of balance and respect. The farmer's fear serves as a natural consequence of his arrogance and mistreatment of the enslaved woman. Meanwhile, the woman and her brother exercise their strength with purpose and dignity, not malice. This moral framing reinforces a crucial lesson. Power that is misused leads to downfall, while power exercised responsibly can protect, empower, and correct injustice. The shift in dominance is not simply about physical might. It is a profound ethical statement about justice, respect, and the consequences of underestimating others. From a storytelling perspective, this keynote is critical for creating dramatic impact. The unexpected power shift transforms the narrative from a simple tale of oppression into a story with suspense, tension, and ultimate resolution. By carefully pacing the revelation of hidden strength and juxtaposing it against the farmer's arrogance, the story engages the audience emotionally and intellectually. Readers are drawn into the psychological dynamics, experiencing both the fear of the oppressor and the empowerment of the oppressed. The shift feels earned, not contrived, because it builds naturally from the character's established traits, motivations, and circumstances. The emotional resonance extends beyond the immediate scene. For the enslaved woman, the power shift validates her resilience and strategic patience. It demonstrates that her intelligence, dignity, and moral courage have been quietly accumulating influence, culminating in a moment that forces the world to recognize her worth. For the audience, this narrative arc offers hope and inspiration, showing that injustice and oppression are not insurmountable. Even in situations where one appears powerless, strength, whether hidden, moral, or physical, can transform outcomes and challenge entrenched hierarchies. Finally, the unexpected power shift serves as a reminder of the unpredictability of life and human relationships. The farmer's arrogance blinded him to the reality of the enslaved woman's capabilities and the protective presence of her brother. His downfall was not the result of brute force alone, but of underestimating the value and strength of others. The story teaches that true power is holistic. It combines resilience, intelligence, courage, and ethical awareness, and that those who wield it responsibly can overturn even the most entrenched systems of dominance. In summary, the keynote Unexpected Power Shift highlights the dramatic reversal of roles in the story, showing how perceived weakness can hide real strength. The main events center on the brothers' imposing presence, the farmer's growing realization, and the reversal of psychological dominance. The emotional impact ranges from suspense and fear to satisfaction and empowerment. The important lessons are clear. Arrogance and cruelty are fragile. True strength is multidimensional, and respect for others is essential. This keynote transforms the story into a compelling narrative of justice, resilience, and the triumph of hidden strength over false superiority, leaving the audience with both emotional satisfaction and lasting insight. The lesson in respect forms the emotional and moral culmination of the story, tying together the arcs of the characters while delivering a timeless message. Arrogance and cruelty inevitably carry consequences, while respect, empathy, and caution toward others, regardless of their social status, are essential for both ethical living and personal safety. This keynote illustrates how the farmer's hubris is dismantled, how the enslaved woman and her family assert their dignity, and how the dynamics of power are forever altered. After the dramatic encounter with the woman's 2.10 all brother, the farmer is confronted with the stark reality that his perceived invulnerability was a fragile illusion. His wealth, social standing, and previous acts of mockery and intimidation have failed to protect him from the consequences of underestimating others. Every action he took to assert dominance now seems hollow and short-sighted. The once confident and arrogant man is now acutely aware that his behavior, mocking, belittling, and disregarding the humanity of the enslaved woman, was both morally wrong and practically dangerous. This is the moment where the story crystallizes its moral lesson. Disrespect toward others, especially those perceived as weaker or inferior, can provoke repercussions far beyond what one expects. The narrative carefully shows the farmer's transformation through internal reflection and emotional reaction. His shock and fear at encountering the woman's brother evolve into a reluctant understanding of his misjudgments. He experiences shame and a deep, uneasy recognition of his arrogance. The audience sees the psychological weight of his prior cruelty settling on his conscience. This makes the story not just a tale of physical confrontation, but a profound exploration of ethical awakening. Through these internal shifts, the story communicates that respect is not merely a social nicety. It is a recognition of the inherent worth and potential of every individual, a principle that, when ignored, can lead to serious consequences. For the enslaved woman, the lesson in respect is both personal and symbolic. She endures humiliation at the hands of the farmer for much of the story, yet her resilience, dignity, and strategic patience are what ultimately restore balance. By maintaining her composure and refusing to mirror cruelty, she exemplifies the strength inherent in ethical behavior. The presence of her brother adds a layer of protection, but the moral high ground is maintained by her actions, demonstrating that respect and self-control are forms of power that cannot be taken by force. Her example shows that true respect is rooted in character and moral integrity, not in social status or physical dominance. The power dynamics shift entirely as a result of this lesson. The farmer, once confident in his absolute control, is now humbled, forced to confront a new reality where his arrogance no longer shields him. This reversal is deeply satisfying for the audience, who have been following the story of oppression, ridicule, and latent strength. The narrative emphasizes that power is not simply about wealth or physical intimidation. It is also about the way individuals treat one another. The woman and her brother command respect not through malice, but through their moral integrity, unity, and quiet strength, a stark contrast to the farmer's previously unchecked cruelty. This juxtaposition reinforces the story's core lesson: respect, caution, and empathy are essential in human interactions, and failure to uphold these principles can lead to dramatic reversals of fortune. Emotionally, this keynote resonates on multiple levels. There is a sense of vindication for the enslaved woman and her family, who have endured injustice with dignity. There is suspense and relief for the audience, who have witnessed the farmer's hubris unravel in real time. Finally, there is a moral satisfaction in seeing justice served, not necessarily through violence, but through recognition of inherent strength and the imposition of accountability. This emotional layering creates a rich reading experience, ensuring that the story's message is felt as deeply as it is understood. The story also reinforces the universality of the lesson. The farmer's arrogance and cruelty are extreme, but they serve as a metaphor for everyday human behavior, how individuals often dismiss, belittle, or underestimate others based on status, wealth, race, or other superficial markers. By showing the dramatic consequences of such behavior, the story encourages reflection and self-awareness. Readers learn that humility, caution, and genuine respect are not signs of weakness, but of wisdom and moral clarity. These values are essential not only for harmonious social interactions, but also for personal safety and ethical integrity. The narrative carefully emphasizes cause and effect. The farmer's downfall is not random, it is directly linked to his prior behavior. Mockery, cruelty, and disregard for the enslaved woman's humanity set the stage for his eventual fear and humiliation. This causality reinforces the importance of the lesson. Actions have consequences, and arrogance often blinds people to the latent strength or intelligence of others. By presenting this sequence clearly, the story ensures that readers understand the ethical and practical dimensions of respect. It is not an abstract moral. It is a principle that governs relationships, power, and survival. Additionally, the lesson extends beyond human interactions to include a broader social and cultural commentary. The farmer's initial belief in hierarchical superiority reflects systemic inequities and prejudices. His eventual recognition of the woman's and her brother's worth challenges these assumptions, symbolizing a rejection of societal norms that valorize status over character. In this sense, the story encourages readers to question entrenched hierarchies, recognize hidden strengths, and approach others with fairness and dignity, regardless of their position in society. Finally, the lesson in respect leaves a lasting impression because it is both moral and practical. The story demonstrates that cruelty and arrogance may provide temporary power, but they cannot withstand the combined force of dignity, intelligence, and ethical courage. Conversely, respect, empathy, and awareness create sustainable relationships, moral authority, and lasting influence. By ending with this lesson, the narrative not only resolves the plot, but also equips the audience with a universal principle applicable in everyday life. Treat others with respect, recognize their inherent worth, and never underestimate the potential that lies hidden beneath appearances. In conclusion, the keynote lesson in respect encapsulates the story's ultimate moral and emotional resolution. The main events show the farmer's hubris dismantled, the woman's dignity affirmed, and her brother's presence reinforcing moral and physical authority. Emotions range from fear and suspense to relief, satisfaction, and ethical clarity. The important lessons are profound and multifaceted, Arrogance and cruelty are punished, respect and caution toward others are essential, and true strength combines moral integrity with courage and unity. This keynote transforms the story from a tale of oppression into a timeless parable about justice, human dignity, and the transformative power of respect, leaving the audience with both emotional fulfillment and practical wisdom. The scorching sun was no stranger to the farm, but neither was arrogance. The wealthy farmer had long believed that wealth, status, and cruelty made him untouchable. He mocked the enslaved woman daily, reveling in her supposed weakness and the power it gave him. Yet what he could not see was that strength often hides in plain sight, cloaked in patience, dignity, and quiet resilience. Everything changed the moment her brother appeared, towering at 10 meters. He moved with a calm authority that made the very air around him tense. The farmer's laughter faltered. His confidence, once so unshakable, gave way to fear. The power dynamic that had defined the farm for years began to crumble. For the first time, the farmer realized that his cruelty and arrogance were fragile shields, vulnerable to forces he had underestimated. In the end, the story is not about brute force, but about the enduring power of respect, courage, and moral integrity. The enslaved woman's dignity, combined with her brother's imposing presence, restored balance and reminded everyone, including the audience, that appearances can be deceiving and that true strength often resides where it is least expected. Arrogance and mockery can dominate only for so long. Patience, courage, and unity carry a weight far greater than wealth or status. The farmer learned a hard, unforgettable lesson. Disrespect carries consequences, and every person, no matter their status, deserves caution and respect. The woman and her brother walked away not only victorious, but as symbols of resilience, empowerment, and the quiet, undeniable force of hidden strength. This story leaves us inspired, with the emotional truth ringing clear. Power misused is temporary, dignity is enduring, and respect is the currency of true strength. It is a tale of reversal, justice, and the profound impact of seeing and honoring the worth of every human being.